Hi, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. And once again, welcome back in the episode of Unknown to Known with Satish on the vulnerability response. So, Satish, again, welcome back. But before we start, let's go as per the tradition. Let's pray to God because last time we suffer a lot with the technical glitches. Hope this time we don't have any of these kind of issues. So, let's pray to God and we'll start the session then.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, Satish, how are you doing now?
Yes, I'm good, Atul. How are you doing?
All good, yeah, all good. Thank you. So, how was the week?
It was a bit hectic. Yeah, as usual.
Okay,
How was
okay.
your day?
And what about? Oh, my day was good. Yeah, definitely hectic. Not hectic, but definitely busy. Hectic, not that much. Okay.
Okay.
So what about the Diwali now?
Yeah, it's coming Diwali soon. Like plannings are going on. Yeah.
Okay. Good. Yeah. Good. 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 Okay. So we'll start now. Okay. But before
Yeah.
we go for the demo perspective, let's have a discussion on the little recap. Could you please take us on the little recap that what we discussed last week?
Share my screen once. Yeah.
Sure. Because I go through few of the topics like VIT, NVC, if I remember CWV or something. I go through and try to understand that how this vulnerability work actually, and different types of
Mhm.
vulnerability like application based, infra based kind of things I discuss. I read little bit about on that particular part.
All right. So yeah,
Yeah.
we'll have an introduction about what we did in the last session. We basically went through like what a config, like we just checked all the config like for the integration part. Then we went through the
Mm-hmm.
assignment rules, how assignment rules are created. Then we checked the remediation task rules, risk scoring,
Right.
and then we checked all the workspaces. There are two workspaces which are present, right? The IT remediation
Right.
workspace and the VR workspace.
Right.
Yeah. So before starting today's session, I would like to, give a walkthrough on all these questions. So these are some of the questions for newbies who have joined this calls because there was a lot of
Mm-hmm.
glitch in the previous session, right? So I would like to
Right.
recap all these questions. Yeah. So we can start with this, and post that I'm planning to have the workflow of how remediation task and vulnerability items life cycle, and then we can proceed with the actual demo in
Okay.
the instance.
Okay. Sure.
Right. Yeah, sure. So, coming to my first question, like,
Mm-hmm.
what is vulnerability, right? So, this is a very basic question. It's very important to understand when you plan to get into ServiceNow's
Mm-hmm.
SecOps module, right? So, it's very important to understand what is vulnerability. So, vulnerability basically it's nothing but it's a weaknesses in your system, right? So giving a layman example, for example, let's say there's an organization or let's say there's a factory or a house, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that house has a boundary. So let me
Okay.
just pull up my screen. Yeah. So let's say there is a house or a office and it has four boundaries, right?
Okay.
And let's say this is 8 feet and this is 8 feet and this is 8 feet according to the
Mm-hmm.
international standard. Based on the
Right.
international standard,
Right.
the sides of these boundaries are 88 feet, and you have one of your sides seems to be 7 feet, right? So this is
Okay.
basically this is less than what your international standard. According to the international standard, one of
So
your side
so
is
so
bit
when you
less than
say
what.
international standard, we are talking about like the standards ISO, ITL, kind of these standards we're talking, right? That this is the minimum
Yes,
one we
yes.
should have. Okay. Okay.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. So, yeah. So you can see here that one of your side is 7, right? That means this is basically the weakness in your system, right? This is your weakness in your
Correct.
system. This
Correct.
can be considered as a vulnerability, and yeah, this is basically flaws in your
Hmm.
system. So yeah,
Okay.
so this is the example of vulnerability. And one more thing, like let's say this is your system, right? And you in your system you got some access control in place. Let's say there's an access control which is placed at the start of your what do you say, the building, right? You have all the
Okay.
access controls,
Right.
like you have the CCTV cameras, you have your guards, everything, like everything is placed here. But
Right.
your security guard person doesn't know who is the authorized and unauthorized person, right? Who should be the authorized person and who should be the unauthorized person to get into this thing.
Hmm.
So
Right.
this also can be considered as an vulnerability. So in short, the reason to show two vulnerability in one system is because I just wanted to uh, explain, like a system can have multiple vulnerabilities. So this is one
Okay.
of the example of where we can have multiple vulnerabilities in a single system, right? So so
Right.
far I think it's clear, right? Yeah.
Yes, yes. No, it's clear. So
Okay.
it means the vulnerability means something which is in your mind that can go wrong. It can be with
Absolutely.
access, it can be with data, it can be with system, it can be with
Anything.
platform, anything. Means
Yeah.
there is some loophole which other
Hmm.
person can take a benefit and destroy your system. It's a
Absolutely,
vulnerability, right?
absolutely. Yeah.
Okay,
And
got it
when your
now.
vulnerability is being exposed, right? When your vulnerability is
Hmm.
exposed, that is called threat. So in this case, if someone
Yes.
knows that yes, there is a this organization, this building is having a 7 feet at one side, right? So the attackers, what they can do, they can have a, they can just get, they know that this is a flaw in their system,
Yes.
and this
Okay.
is where they can make use of it and get into this. So
Got
this
it.
is the example where you can have the threat is. And what risk basically comes in if this how do you say, these threats are possibly if someone is making use of this threat, this the
Hmm.
possibility of occurrence of loss is there, right? So that is called risk
Right.
in this case.
Hmm. Nice example. Thanks.
All right, let me just come back to my screen. What's missed? All right, coming to the next question, we have
Hmm.
the vulnerability. What is ServiceNow vulnerability response? So this is where we need to understand why we need to make use of ServiceNow vulnerability response, right? So when you say ServiceNow vulnerability response, right? So here
Hmm.
you have your security people, you have your operational team people, right? So this helps your security people as well as your operational team people to handle the vulnerabilities. So the security people, they manages all your vulnerabilities, and they make use of they take help of the operational team to remediate that, right? So that
Okay.
is where vulnerability response bring them together in a single platform where they can with the help of the third party integration scanning tools, they can prioritize the vulnerabilities, they can have the risk score in place and assign the vulnerabilities to the specific remediation team to
Okay.
remediate those tasks. So that is where ServiceNow vulnerability response taken place.
Hmm. Okay. Got it.
Yeah. So now the next question is, who uses vulnerability response? Yeah. So vulnerability response is basically for, I would say, for two personas. Two
Hmm.
personas, as in, like, we have the vulnerability analyst. When you say vulnerability analyst means the people who monitor or,
Okay.
like, who initiate the remediation tasks, right? So those are the people who make use of it, and then you have the remediation owners. So remediation owners are nothing but the people who resolves your vulnerability through the tasks which have been assigned to them, right? So
Okay.
yeah, so these are the personas. Now coming to the two workspaces, as I mentioned, like vulnerability response has two workspaces, that is vulnerability manager workspace and IT remediation workspace, right? So when I talk about vulnerability manager workspace, so this is basically for the vulnerability analyst who can monitor and manages your vulnerability. They can view all the vulnerabilities associated which is present over the
Hmm.
platform, right? So they can view
Okay.
everything. Now, coming to the IT remediation workspace, this is dedicated to the remediation owners who are, like, uh, dedicated to remediation owner people, like the assigned remediation task, whatever the assigned remediation task is, only those records would be visible to them, and they can
Okay.
work on those ticket and remediate them. All right, now coming to the CI. So as we are, it's a common across the platform. So we all know that it's basically,
Configuration
it
item.
basically represent, yeah, configuration item, yeah, to support the task, and also for that we use the CIs, and all. It stores your asserts and all everything. Now we have the vulnerability item. So vulnerability item is, so basically it is a vulnerability on your CIs, right? Vulnerability on
Right.
CIs identified by the third-party applications, like not third-party application, but third-party scanners. So,
Okay.
for example, let's say third-party scanner. For example, let's say Qualys. So, with the help of Qualys, we can identify what are the vulnerabilities in our assets, right? So that we can identify with that.
Okay.
Now coming to the next question, so we have the vulnerability, and yeah, we have the vulnerability items. So as I mentioned, like vulnerability items. So uh, yeah, we just discussed vulnerability item. Yeah, true.
Right.
So ServiceNow detection, yeah, that is a detection like the you have the QIDs and all those. The vulnerability detection part, it comes in your, it gets placed in your vulnerability item. Then
Okay.
how are vulnerability item remediation task assigned to remediation team, right? So
Hmm.
uh, VITs, VIT stand for vulnerability
Right.
items, and
Items. Right.
remediation, yeah, and remediation task stands for VUL, like you, it's a prefix for that. So
Right.
vulnerability items are basically these are grouped. These are grouped together in order to group together based on some criterias. Like you can have your own criterias. Let's say based on the severity, or
Mm-hmm.
let's say based on the risk score, or whatever the requirement is. Based on that, you can
Right.
just group your vulnerable items, and that creates your remediation task, that is VUL, and you can uh, remediate your remediation task based on that. So
Okay.
these are some of the key yeah
Mm-hmm.
um, questions which I just wanted to clear before we jump into the demonstration part.
Okay. Now that's clear. So it makes that ServiceNow provide a place for this vulnerability to be take care, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay. So detection has been done by the third party
Hmm.
scanners, then it
Yeah,
come to us, and then ServiceNow plan to assignment, prioritization, risk, and give to the team so that they can work on that particular part.
absolutely, absolutely. That's true. So
Okay.
so I think this is the life cycle which will give a clear idea on how tasks are remediated. So this is basically the life cycle of remediation task and the vulnerability items. So at the start, we have our scanner in place. We have the scanner in place for our environment, and we have the third party third party data. So that is like, for example, let's say you have a call list. From the call list, you're pulling all the
Right.
vulnerabilities, all the assets, and vulnerabilities for those assets. So once that has been pulled into ServiceNow, based on your configuration item is a VI, that is your vulnerability item, right? So once your vulnerability items are created at the initial stage, this has not been assigned to anyone, like it is not assigned to any remediation team. So for that we need to make use of the assignment rules. So assignment rules is nothing but we set up the rule based on some criterias. It can be severity, it can be configuration items, or it can be your asset tags. Based on that you set up the conditions, and once that condition is being set up, uh, uh, your VITs gets assigned to the dedicated team, right? Now, this VITs, as we mentioned, like VITs can be grouped together, right? So that grouping is called a remediation task. So
Okay.
here is where we create the remediation task rule. So remediation task rule is nothing but remediation task rule is basically used to group your vulnerability items into one task. So that is called remediation task. So here we create our rules based on the any based on the criteria whatever is specified, right? All right. Yeah. So once your remediation task is in place, so if you can see here the how this has been divided, you
Right.
have a third-party application scanner, then you have the vulnerability response, which creates the task for you. Then you have your remediation team who is actually working on that, right? So this is
Right.
your I would say the IT operation team people who is going to work on this. So at the initial stage, your vulnerability at the initial stage of vulnerability is in threat, and it undergoes the investigation and all. So there are a couple of stages here. You have a new state, you have under investigation, awaiting implementation, then deferred, resolved, and all this we'll be seeing in the demonstration part. So yeah.
Right.
So once the remediation task is in under investigation state, then you have an opportunity where you can like in order to resolve that, you can create a change request for your to remediate a vulnerability. You can create a change request, or you can just put into exception. Now, talking about the exception, right? So let me just complete this flow first. How
Mm-hmm.
change request works. So for example, let's say you create a change request for your remediation task, right?
Right.
So once the change request is created, the change request team, right? Here it goes to the change request team, and the change request team implements the necessary action. It completes the life cycle of change request, and once the life cycle of change request is completed and it is being closed, it automatically resolves your remediation task. Okay, that means once it resolves your remediation task, once your change request is closed and resolved, it automatically resolves your remediation task, and it also resolves all the associated vulnerability items which are associated to your remediation task. So that's where it shows
Right.
RT navigates to VIs, right? So that means all the VITs which are associated with remediation tasks would also be resolved. All right.
Okay.
Now this is in case when you're placing some like some mitigation for your things, right? So like
Right.
you're using change request for that. So in that case, this flow would work. And but for example, you don't want to implement any mitigation plan, right? So in that case,
Mm-hmm.
uh, you undergo some exceptions. Like you have some
Right.
exceptions, right? In which you can just hold on, like exception, like just to give you an example, like not example, but in layman term, like exception in this case is like a it's granting you a temporary approval to delay or avoid the remediation avoid remediation
Mm-hmm.
to undergo condition, some condition. Based on some condition, it is temporarily delaying your this thing vulnerabilities. So in that
Okay.
case, you're doing the exception. So exception can be of any time, like a risk acceptance or compensating control. Like compensating controls means, for example, like you have some security measures which are in place, right, to mitigate the vulnerabilities. In that
Mm-hmm.
case, you will have some compensating controls, or you have the false positive exception as well. So that will be seen in the demonstration part. So false positive is basically for when vulnerability incorrect vulnerability is identified, right? For example, let's say some incorrect vulnerabilities are identified. So in that case, in order to exempt prevent unnecessary
Mm-hmm.
remediation, in that case we make use of
But
this false
but
positive thing.
one thing, Satish, as you say, in or unnecessary vulnerability has been identified, but in the beginning we discussed that vulnerability will be verified or will be picked up from this database, right? Or
Hmm.
means I'm confused at how this unnecessary vulnerabilities will be identified or un documented kind of things.
Yeah. So it is a part of an exception management. So it is a part of exception
Okay.
management where you have the opportunity, uh, like whether you can exempt your vulnerability for a dedicated time period, or the security team basically, like security team has a more idea about it, like whether this is actually a false positive one, because they have an idea whether this vulnerability is actually actual vulnerability, or it's just a it don't need any remediation as of now. So in that case, they put it into the false positive condition, and the necessary approvals are required for that.
Okay. Got it
So
now.
yeah. So here is where we send the submit the exception request. So once we send the exception request, the approve exception request. So there is an approval which gets triggered. So in out of the box, we have two level of approvals which are required in order to complete this exception request and put it into the defer state. So in here in this state, if the exception request is being rejected, then your remediation task goes back to its initial state, that is the in the open stage, right? And if the approval is accepted, in that case, your remediation task goes to the deferred state, right? So here one more flow which I just wanted to explain is like if in the change request part, right, you see that your remediation task has been resolved,
Right.
it has been resolved. But if for example, let's say this remediation task has been resolved today, and
Mm-hmm.
in tomorrow's scan, if we see that this
Again, the vulnerability
vulnerability
came.
has again been, yeah, again this
Okay.
vulnerability has been detected. So in that case, this would be reopened unless and
So,
until it is actually closed in the system. Yeah.
so no, no. So when you say actually closing the system, what this mean actually then?
Yeah, actually close as in the call list. I mean, in the not call list, but your third-party tool, whichever tool you're using. In that, if it is
Okay.
closed, then yeah, yeah.
Okay, okay, okay.
So
So
we
till that time it will be showing open or be getting again and again.
resolved.
My task will be
Yeah,
getting reopen always on same again and again and again and again.
yeah. If it is detected, only in the case if it is detected again post this
Hmm.
resolution date, it is
Okay.
completely based on this resolution date. When your vulnerability is resolved, that date is compared with the newly detected vulnerability for that asset. So based on that, it
Got it.
happens.
Got it. Got it. Got it.
Right. Yeah, this is the flow of how um, the remediation task is executed. Yeah. All right. I think we are good to go to the demo part.
Hmm.
So for the demo, I would first like to show how we set up the the integration part, right? So it's pretty simple.
Hmm.
In the You just have to go to the setup assistance in the vulnerability response. I'll just open this. Yeah. So scrolling down, you'll have this integration configuration. You just need to click on this scan integration, and here is
Hmm.
where you can just set up your integration partly. You can have a multiple instance of any tool,
Multiple third
any
party scanners we
applications.
can have.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Okay.
Even a multiple same can be integrated. Same application can be integrated if you have a different thing.
But the different
So
different instances of same application also can be get added here.
yes, yes,
Okay.
yes, true. So as if now I just integrated callers. So if I just edit over here, I'm just showing like what all
Hmm.
details you would need in order to do the integration part. So you need to have a unique name if you're having a
Right.
if you're integrating another college instance. So you have to make sure that your another college instance name is different from what is actually present. Then you need to have your server URL, so which you'll get it from your security team along with the
Okay.
username and password, which would be provided by the security team. So here is where you can just put your credentials in. So as if now it won't allow me to do that because I haven't set, yeah. So now coming to once you set up your credentials, you can just come to the knowledge base configuration. So basically,
Hmm.
this is nothing but you are importing the knowledge base data from the call list, that is your QIDs and all those things, right? QID, when I say QID, that is your knowledge base which is present in the call list. So if I go
Okay.
to the call list instance, I have a call list instance open for you here. I'll just open that.
So you did you get this trial version of the college instance?
Yeah, I
Like
have got a trial version, but the thing is like I'm unable to generate the vulnerabilities because I
that's
don't have any scanning IPs
scanning
on which I
system
can
available.
scan.
Okay, IP is available.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah,
right,
yeah,
right.
yeah. But I had one, but it's not working as of now. I tried like long back, so yeah, that's not working as of now.
Okay.
So if I come to the knowledge base here in the college, so if you'll see that these are the knowledge base data
Hmm.
from the college. So all this data we pull into ServiceNow. So that is your knowledge base which you're pulling. So this gets like you can just schedule like based on your requirement, daily basis or in anything you can just schedule based on that. Now coming to the host detection, so this is a bit crucial. So this is basically where you are importing your vulnerabilities, right? Asserts and your vulnerabilities for that.
Hmm.
So here is where you're doing the integration part, like host detection configuration. So here you specify like which all vulnerabilities you want to pull into the system, right? From your third party system. So you have the severities defined here. So you have like based on your requirement, if you want only the urgent and critical, you can specify that only these vulnerabilities I want into my ServiceNow instance. So this is what you can specify. Then you have the date time schedule, on what time you want to pull in, uh, at what time this should be scheduled, like the data should be pulled in. Then you have the feasibility to pull the fixed vulnerabilities as well. Ideally, it's not recommended to pull because it reduces your performance. So yeah, because there's lot of thingies, right, like previous ones also which have been fixed. So there's no point of pulling that into service now. So these are some of the configurations which you can do. Then you have the CI
So,
lookups,
so, so
which will,
it means
you know,
before service now, this third party scanner configurations are more important to make sure that the right vulnerability, right time, right IP should be picked up, right?
exactly. So based on this configuration, whatever the setup we are doing, right? So this is basically pulling all your assets and all your vulnerabilities. Let's
Okay,
say a
I'll just
system.
put one more question, Satish here. So I'm not a technical guy. I'm a consultant. So what do you think that what question I should ask to my customer if I need to be implement the vulnerability for them?
Yeah,
Means, mm-hmm.
the most common question which I have heard is like, even from my clients as well, um, they have a lot of assets in their instance, right? In the scanning instance. So in that third party instance, they have a lot of
Mm-hmm.
scanning. There are a lot of assets, right? So
Right,
they have they just want a limited number of assets, like some asset tag, like based on some asset tag, they just want limited as
to be
vulnerabilities
scanned.
or limited to be scanned. Yeah, so
Okay.
that is something which I have often seen. So that is where you need to make some changes in these parameters which are required to pull the data, like integration part.
Hmm.
So that also I'll
Okay.
show post this. Now
Okay.
coming to the CI lookup, so CI lookup as we mentioned in the last session as well. So this is basically in order to just map with your CI configuration item to discover the vulnerability items. So this is where it makes use of that. Now import schedule, it's like importing the data, host detection your data, like on what basis you want to import your data. So that is this part. All right. So the one which you mentioned just now, I'd like to show that as well. Yeah. So this is where I just wanted to show you
So after
where
doing
we can
this
restrict.
connection mapping, we need to be
Mhm.
see that how it's will look like in service now, and now you're showing that where I can restrict that out of 10,000, I just want to be scanned 10 assets in my system. That
Mhm.
configuration need to be done in the service now, not in the third party scanners.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So this is where you can just make use of that. So you have your this is a post method, this is a rest method message, and you have the rest method, which is the post method, which is called. So if I open this, here the parameters would be defined. You have your endpoint as well. Yeah, so this is your endpoint. This is your endpoint in order to detect the vulnerabilities, and these are some of the parameters which are defined, right? So you can just update this parameter based on the college documentation. So there's this college user guide documentation where you can have all the parameters defined in order to if you want to make any changes to
Mm-hmm.
your endpoints and all. So there's this one. I think there's this one parameter. Tag include,
Okay.
which is one of the parameter which you can just make use of it. Which will pull only those assets based on your requirement.
Requirement. Okay.
Yeah. All right. So this was basically the integration part. Now
Mm-hmm.
I would like to show the assignment group, what exactly it it looks like, and then we'll jump into the actual rules. Yeah. So I just created one of the rule today. I'll just open that. So yeah. So it's very straightforward. you have your condition. So based on your
Mm-hmm.
condition, you are just saying that the class should be Windows Server, and if the vulnerability item, like your VIT, so vulnerability items configuration item class is Windows Server, it should be assigned to
Mm-hmm.
your remediation owner team. So based on that, you can just
Okay.
place all the assignment rules. So similarly, you can have the remediation task rule also set up. Yeah, you can have the remediation task rule setup. You can have some based on the conditions. So if I open this, yeah. So here, like exploit exist. There are some conditions which they are defining, and based on the assignment group, the grouping is happening, and
Mm-hmm.
then it is happening based on the vulnerability, that is a QID, based on that it is happening, and it is getting assigned to the assignment group. This is how your
Okay.
remediation task role is set up, and views are created. That is your remediation task. Yeah. Now let's jump into the workspace directly for the demo. All right. This is the host vulnerability, nothing but your all the VITs vulnerability
Right.
item. Then you have the remediation task. Uh, so I'll just open one of the remediation tasks, which is in the open stage. Let me just open this. So yeah. So this is how your remediation task looks like. So if you see here, based on based on the rules, this
Mm-hmm.
remediation task has been created, and you have your VITs associated with it. So as of now there's only one VIT which is associated with this VUL. I can show one example where there are multiple vulnerability item associated. Yeah, this is the best example. So if you see right here, there are multiple vulnerability items which are associated to your remediation task. So resolving this remediation task will auto resolve your these two remediation tasks as well. Okay, so now let's see the flow how it works. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
so at the initial stage, you can just have like start the investigation. Yeah, as I mentioned, like you can just create a change request, which is like the mitigation plan which you're setting up, and coming over here, you can see the mark as false positive. Then you have the split task. Then you have the request exception, and also if I go to the request exception part, you can just yeah, you can have this like reason selected here,
Mm-hmm.
awaiting maintenance and all this, mitigating control, risk
Okay.
acceptance, fixability, and all based on that. So let me just select one of the reason here, and I just selected it till 31st of October. This should be exempted. So you see that the state is in review. Now if I go to the state change,
Mm-hmm.
it is in review stage, and it is sent for the, one second, what's this? So now the request is being sent to this set of people for the exception. It is just loading. Yeah, so this set of people have got the request. So uh, just for the demo purpose, I'll just approve it right away from here. So if I click over here and approve this and save, and I go back to my state again, so you can see that there's another approval request which is being triggered, right? So this was approved by this set of people, so these set of people are no longer required to approve because it was approved by one of the user. So now the second level of approval has been triggered for the exception. So now if I approve this, the second
And
level
this
of approval.
exception and everything work via flow designer, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you see that now if you see the state change approval, the request which was raised, now it is completely approved, and the state has also been changed to the deferred state, right? So this is the example of exception which is being raised for your remediation task. Now I'll just show you, like I'll just reopen this and just to, like show you the another example, because I don't have any more vulnerabilities with multiple, sorry, any more remediation tasks with multiple VITs, so that's the reason. Yeah, there's one more example which I wanted to show is the yeah, this one, the risk reduction parts, right? So for example, let's say you have a risk rating 2 which is high, right? And your organization say that, like this the and based on this, right, your remediation targets are set up, right? Your SLAs and all those are defined, right? So in order, like let's say it is high, so obviously it needs to be remediated within 30 days or 7 days, whatever the defined
Right.
dates are, right? So the team which is working on that, and they decide like this can be remediated at a later stage as well. So in that case, they need to raise a risk reduction for that. So how it happens? Like you can just go here and request for an exception, and the reason which you need to select is the mitigating control in place. So once you select the mitigating control in place, and you can just define the date until when you want this risk mitigation to be existing. So I'll just have a justification risk reduction, and I'll request an exception.
Just one more thing. So, do we have any concept called the major vulnerability as well, which need to be done very immediately basis? Like in the incident, we have a major incident. In the case, we have a major case management. So, something do we have in the vulnerability as well, or
Uh,
it allow us to be take time 2 days, 3 days, 5 days, 7 days.
it is like you define your remediation targets, right? So based on that, this target this target dates you define. So based on this status are updated, and you get the notification and all, like this needs to be remediated as soon as possible. Like the notification is being sent based on that.
Okay, good. Thanks.
Acceptance. I am not seeing that option, and selection is not allowing. Risk reduction is not allowed in this case, so that's the reason it's not coming here. So maybe I can show the risk reduction part for one of the VIDs, because it both has the same flow.
Right. And
So
there's
if
a
I
no
come,
native view. It's all done in the workspace only, right? Dedicated
no, no, it
workspace.
yeah, you can do in a native view as well. Like you may to say the class if you want, if you want to do this entire flow, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
the
you can do.
form level which we saw.
Yeah,
But
yeah, you can do that.
recommendation is to be used on the workspace, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay.
I'm not sure why I'm getting this risk reduction is not allowed. So ideally, it used to show. Uh,
Might be some configuration or some setup has been done in the background.
I think so. Yeah. Okay, not an issue. So let's see the false positive as well. So as we saw the risk request exception part we saw, so which has two level of approvals we saw, right? So similarly we have the false positive also, which can be raised. So in that case you just need to provide the justification and request approval. So this has a one level of approval. So this is a set of people who have received the approvals request.
And if anybody reject, what will happen then?
Yeah, if anyone rejects, then in that case, your what do you say, the remediation task or vulnerability item will come up into its previous state, whatever the state would be. That is the open state. Yeah.
Open state. Okay.
All right, so that was the exam. Like we saw how we can raise the exception. Now, similarly,
Mm-hmm.
I just want to show one more thing here is the split functionality. So, for example, let's say there are in this case we have only two. Let's say you have 10, 20 vulnerability item associated to your remediation task, and you believe that
Mm-hmm.
out of this, some are like some doesn't belong to this remediation, whatever the actions you're taking, right? So in that case, what you can do, you can just select those vulnerability items from here and make use of this split task. This will basically you just need to provide some justification. Split test. Yeah. So once you split it, this for this vulnerability item, a new remediation task would be created. So if you see here, you have a new remediation task which has been created for this. So if I go to the details section and go to the comments, so this is the new remediation task which is created for that VIT. So that VIT would be in this new remediation task. All right. So this was basically the exception management. Even yeah, we can see the create change as also as I mentioned, like we can have this mitigation plan in place. So for that, you
Mm-hmm.
can just have this create make use of this create change. So basically, there's an M2M table which is basically where you can just create the data, create the record, and that record basically creates a change request in the actual change request table. So here is where this all the details have been auto populated. You
Mm-hmm.
can just implement, you can just put some like whatever the plan you're setting up and create a change request. So this will basically create a change request for you. So if you go here
Can you
and
little
you
louder,
see,
please, Satish?
yeah, so the change request
Yeah.
is created. So
Okay.
once if you see here, the change request has been created for that, so we can just open that change request. Yeah, so this is your change request thing. So once this change request has been mitigated
Mm-hmm.
in the like soon your remediation task would also be
Right.
resolved. It's not only you create the change request here, you can
Mm-hmm.
also have an existing change request which is already there, right? You can just make use of that as well. So
Okay.
so you can just have the list of all the change requests which are present, and you can just pass them to your remediation task.
Hmm. Okay.
Yes. All right. So now one more thing I just want to show the integration instance. So for any application, which third-party application which you'll be installing, you'll be having an integration instance thing where you can, have all the settings, like whatever the settings you have done, right? Whatever the parameters you have called in your endpoints, whatever in your endpoints, that details would also be put up here. So if you see here the severity 4, it is true because we selected true over there, right? While doing the configuration. Similarly, um, all the parameters will be pulled up here, and here also you can just make set up the values based on your requirements.
Hmm.
So these are basically the parameters which are being used in Qualys integration. So and what all the integrations are there, you have your host integration list, knowledge base, all these details you can pull in from the Qualys to your system.
Okay.
So coming to the IT remediation workspace, how it looks like. Yeah. So for IT remediation workspace, I'll just impersonate one of the user. Remediation. Yeah. So this is how the workspace would look like for IT remediation people. So they have the assigned to them or assigned to their group whatever the remediation tasks are, and in the list view, yeah, they can request for exception and all, and they in the IT remediation workspace, you won't see an approval section here. So approval is only present in the for the managers, right? So for the analyst, so in that case, it will be in the vulnerability manager workspace. So that section is also not there here. And one more thing, one last thing I just wanted to show is the survey part. So for example, I'll just reopen this remediation task and I request an exception. So while requesting an exception,
Mm-hmm.
you can just have a survey also set up. That survey will have a set of questions which would be helpful for the person who is approving your request, right? So that setup you can do over exception exception management. So here is where you can just you can go to the exception management and you can enable the surveyors. So enable you're enabling the questionnaires for that. So for false positive and for the your exception request for request exception and the compensating control for both, you can just set up the surveyor question. So now if I go to my workspace and request an exception, I would be seeing a surveyor request exception. Yeah. So previously, when we requested an exception, we did not see the surveyor, right? So now we have configured that. So you have a set of questions which are defined. So these questions, whatever the answer you'll be providing here, so that would
Mm-hmm.
be visible to the approver as a reference, where based on which he can just approve or reject the request. So
Okay.
this is not mandatory, but yeah, it can be configured. Alrighty. I think Atul, that's what I just wanted to cover up from the
And
PR
what
module
what
as
about
well.
the reports and the dashboards? Anything on that particular part also I
Yeah,
can we can see?
yeah, sure, 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 absolutely. Yeah, this is I have just installed the PA dashboard as well. Just
Okay.
open that. Yeah.
Because
So
definitely,
here
if
is
this is a big module of the product, ServiceNow provides some dashboards as well on this particular part.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So here is where you can just track of all the vulnerabilities, how many vulnerabilities are there. So as of now, I have
Mm-hmm.
46 vulnerabilities, and how many remediation tasks are created. You can just select based on the
Mm.
risk rating. You can just define then assignment role. Then here you have this heat map where you can just see, how many are critical, how many are high, low, medium. That set of things also you can see based on the SLAs, like 0 to 7 days, 31 to 60 days, and all whatever the dates are defined, right? So yeah, this is some of the high level data. Yeah, but this dashboard won't be visible to the vulnerability, sorry, ID remediation people, the remediation owners. For them, it won't be visible. So for them, it will be a basic workspace where they can just view the data related to them.
Okay. I guess did we cover the other dashboard as well? Sorry, dashboard. I'm saying workspace.
Yeah, IT remediation workspace. Yeah,
Right. Okay. Okay. That's why I'm missing the name actually. Okay.
yeah. I think yeah, that's it. I wanted to cover for this session.
Yeah. Okay. So again, I'm coming on the same question. If you are a consultant or I'm a consultant and I want to implement vulnerability response for my customer, what basic question I should ask?
Yeah, basic question. Yeah, so that's what like it's very important to be connected with the security team because
Mm-hmm.
it's for them we are implementing, right? So the rules, like the main part here is your risk scoring part.
Mm-hmm.
Your risk scoring, then how your vulnerabilities should be grouped in order to create the remediation task. Then the risk scoring part is also very important because out of the box the weightage which is given for the risk scoring is pretty standard. But what actually the security team uses has a different ones. So based on their heat maps and all, we need to define that, and the remediation target also, the dates to remediate the
Mm-hmm.
vulnerabilities and the remediation task. That also we can define.
Okay. And what about the foundation data? Or and when we say that we have to be connect with the national database, so is it a costing one or how it's we work in the background? Because something same concept work in the GRC as well, like UCF we have Unified Compliance Form.
UCF, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, in IRM we have that UCF. Yeah, so here we have this NVD data, the national vulnerability data which we
Mm-hmm.
pulled in, right? So yeah, the NEST data which is maintained by NEST, so that is pulled in for the reference
So
purpose. Yeah.
so how it's work? Like it's what I can say, like per month licensing, or how they charge it, or it's how it's manage it by the company, because definitely if I need to be make sure that this is the right vulnerability, I have to be connected with this database so that I got the right information.
Yes, that is a paid one. So yeah, that is a paid one. So it's like a monthly
Hmm.
basis they charge for that.
Oh, monthly basis, and they update their database regularly, right?
It's regularly updated, and yeah, it's regularly updated, and we can just integrate and we can just pull the data and update our instance as well based on that.
Hmm. Okay. No, good. And what are the technical challenges anybody face in this implementation?
Uh, Technical challenges, right? There are some glitches in the workspace.
Hmm.
I would say glitches, as in like I would show that. I think. Let me just share it. Not sure why I'm not able to share. Is my screen
Okay.
visible?
No, no. Let me add you in the studio again. Screen sharing. Now
Yeah.
it's you can do able to see your screen.
You can see my screen, right?
Yes, yes, sir.
All right. So there are a lot of things which I have noticed in the
Mm-hmm.
workspace. So I'll just show you. Yeah, first and most, the basic one is, can you see the text over here? How it is
Right.
overlapping. So this
Hmm.
is not being maintained. It's not taking based on the user resolution, right? Whatever the user is setting up the resolution based on that, it is not getting set up. So this is one of the flaw which I have seen, and there are a lot of things like this is one thing. There are some field which are not making use of it and still they are in place. So configuration item for remediation task is of no use. So that is also been added. Uh,
Hmm.
yeah, there are small glitches which are there.
Okay. And do we have any kind of a documentation for the vulnerability response on the now crate as well? By any chance, have you seen these things
Documentation as in like for which
on like
documentations?
a process workshops or the process guides or the starter
Yes,
stories kind of
yes.
things?
Yeah.
So
We do have the process guide we have, then we have the workshop process workshop also. We have those documentation, we have PPTs and all those are there.
okay, good. Okay, let me check. I guess only one question was there. So Sumit
Was this
says
there
that
was
please.
this?
Good.
There was
Good.
this, yeah, yeah. There was this one more document which last session I showed. So
Mm-hmm.
this would be very much helpful if someone is implementing VR module. So this is a quick start cheat sheet which is provided by ServiceNow. So here is
Okay.
where you have the links of all the configuration which you will be doing, right? So for example, you are doing the setup for the call list. So
Mm-hmm.
you just go to this link and it'll redirect you to the doc, and that doc will have all the setup,
Okay.
how you need to make the setup and all. Then you have the remediation for creating the assignment rules, then remediation targets and all those things you can have. Here also you have some quick links for the setup assistant. Even
Okay.
you have the
And
VR
and
demo and all those things.
and this thing we can get in the ServiceNow site only, right?
Yes, yes.
Hmm. Okay. Looks good. Interesting. That's good. Okay, so I guess Satish, it was a good session. At least for me, I can say, and the people who joined with me is definitely a good one. Good demonstration this time, and good learning as well for me. Okay, so before we go, final closer, and let's pray to God. Thanks to God for making this session so successful, and we'll finally close the session as well after this. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So finally, it's time to become to say goodbye to you, Satish. Thank you so much for your time on
Yeah.
today session, and thanks everyone who joined with me on this live session today. And wish you a very happy festive season. Happy Diwali coming the next week. So I'll be taking break for the next week, and we'll come back possibly on, yep, 9th of November. We'll coming back again with some superb another guest for some more learning, for more some inspiring sessions as well. Till the time, take care.